The Earth was dying. Cities that once shone bright were now nothing but burning skeletons. The sky, once blue, was black with smoke and filled with alien warships. They floated above, cold and silent, like they had already won. Streets were empty. Buildings were broken. Oceans boiled under strange alien weapons. The human race was almost gone. Underground, hidden in a deep bunker, a small group of humans sat together. Their faces were dirty, their eyes tired, but they were not ready to give up yet. General Harris looked around the room. Only a few soldiers were left, and some scientists. Their last communication showed that Earth's defense lines had all fallen. The aliens were here to finish the job. Harris clenched his fists. They had no ships left, no weapons, no backup, only old stories, whispers from long ago about something buried deep under the earth, something sealed away because it was too dangerous. "We have no other choice," Dr. Elena whispered. Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. "We have to summon it." A cold silence fell over the room. Some soldiers shifted uncomfortably. One man, Corporal Diaz, laughed, nervously. "You mean the thing even the gods fear? That's just a story." Elena shook her head. "It's not. My grandfather worked on the project. He told me stories, but he always said, if we ever wake it up, it's the end." "The end of them or the end of us?" Harris asked quietly. Elena didn't answer. Above ground, the alien ships began to move. Bright blue lights formed under their bellies, weapons charging. In a few minutes, Earth's surface would be nothing but ash. Harris knew they had no time left. He stood up, nodded once, and said, "Do it." The team ran down the long, dark hallways of the bunker. They reached a giant steel door, locked for centuries. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface, symbols no one could read anymore. Elena placed her hand on a scanner. It flashed red at first, then slowly turned green. With a loud, deep groan, the door began to open. Inside was not a weapon. It was not a machine. It was a giant black stone, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Around it were wires, old machines, broken screens. Nothing worked anymore. But the stone was still alive. Elena stepped forward. She whispered words she had learned long ago, words passed down in her family. The stone's heartbeat grew louder. The air became heavy. Soldiers stepped back, feeling the weight in their chests, like something massive was waking up. Outside, the alien ships fired. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. But under the ground, in the dark room, something else was moving. The stone cracked open. Light poured out. Not white, not yellow, but something the human eye could barely understand. It was shifting, twisting, alive. A shadow stretched across the room, even though there was no light to cast it. The soldiers raised their weapons, unsure. Harris whispered, "Hold your fire." A voice filled the bunker. It was not a sound. It was inside their heads. "Who calls me?" Elena fell to her knees. We need help." "You broke the seal." The voice was cold, not angry, not kind, just old, heavy, eternal. Outside, alien ships suddenly paused. Their scanners went wild. Energy readings they couldn't understand spiked across the planet. Commanders screamed orders, but ships wouldn't respond. Something bigger than them had entered the battlefield. Harris took a step forward. "Our world is dying. Will you fight for us?" The air pulsed. The stone began to float. "Fight? For you? I do not fight. I consume." The soldiers flinched. Diaz raised his rifle, but Harris pushed it down. "Wait! If you call me, you must pay." Elena's face turned pale. She looked at Harris. "It wants something in return." "Anything," Harris said. "We don't have a world left to give." The voice seemed to smile inside their minds. Then I will take what you are. Suddenly, the ground above ripped apart. Alien ships were pulled down, crashing into the earth like toys. The sky tore open, not from weapons, but from something stepping through. Not a ship, not a creature, a force. A shadow bigger than mountains, bigger than the planet itself. Harris fell to his knees. What did we bring here? Elena whispered. Even the gods feared it. Above, the aliens screamed, but no one heard them. Space itself bent, stars flickered, black holes trembled. The being had arrived. Inside the bunker, the humans felt both terror and strange peace. They knew they had saved their world. But as the shadow turned its gaze toward them, they realized the truth. They had also ended it. The last thing Harris saw before everything went dark was the faint smile on Elena's face and the soft whisper inside his mind. Thank you for freeing me. Underground, the bunker was shaking. Dust fell from the ceiling. Cracks spread across the walls, and the old machines sparked as the power flickered. The soldiers tried to hold their balance while the strange black stone hovered in the air, glowing with a light that was not light, pulsing with a sound that was not sound. General Harris gripped the edge of a broken table, staring up at the thing they had just freed. Above ground, the alien ships were panicking. They had come to Earth expecting easy victory. Their fleets were the strongest in the galaxy. But now, their weapons wouldn't lock. Their shields were failing, and something was spreading through space, something they couldn't understand. Commanders shouted over comms, trying to organize a retreat, but it was already too late. Back in the way. Bunker. Dr. Elena stood frozen, eyes wide, heart racing. The voice still filled their minds. You have freed me. Now, you will watch. The soldiers ran to the surveillance screens. Somehow, the external cameras still worked. On the broken screens, they watched as the first alien mothership, larger than any city, began to twist. Its metal hull folded in on itself, turning inside out, then crumbling into glowing dust. No weapon touched it, no beam fired. It simply stopped existing. Corporal Diaz cursed under his breath. What the hell is that thing doing? Elena whispered. It's not destroying them. It's unmaking them. Above, the aliens tried to fire their weapons. Energy blasts shot out, but never reached the ground. The beams bent, frozen in space, then fell apart like glass. The alien ships pulled back, trying to escape Earth's orbit, but the sky had already torn open. From the hole in the sky came a shape. It wasn't a ship, and it wasn't a creature. It was a presence, a shadow larger than planets, stretching across the stars, its edges curling through dimensions humans couldn't name. The soldiers felt it pressing against their minds. Some fell to their knees crying. Others simply stared, unable to understand what they were seeing. General Harris stood still, his fists clenched, his face pale. This is what we called here, he muttered. The voice answered softly, You called, I answer. On the screen, the alien fleet shattered. Hundreds of ships, each more powerful than anything on Earth, broke apart silently, folding into nothing. The stars themselves seemed to shiver. Harris watched, feeling both awe and terror. They had saved Earth, but at what cost? Elena grabbed Harris's arm. General, it's not stopping. He turned. What do you mean? It's not just going after them, she whispered, voice trembling. Look at the readings. Look at the sky. Outside, the clouds twisted. The moon flickered, almost like a candle about to go out. The air felt heavy, electric. Something was wrong. Suddenly, every soldier heard it in their minds. You have no enemies left. Only me. Diaz raised his rifle. General, tell me we can stop this thing. Harris didn't answer. His mouth was dry. He looked back at Elena. What does it want from us? Elena shook her head. It told us. We set it free. Now it's taking what it was promised. One by one, soldiers dropped their weapons. The cameras showed Earth's orbit, now empty of ships, but also empty of stars. Darkness was spreading. It wasn't night. It was something else, something deeper, swallowing everything. Harris whispered, "This is not a victory." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "No, it's the end." The black stone floated higher, the glow around it expanding. Walls cracked, metal bent, machines melted. The humans tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The air pulsed again. A deep, echoing voice filled every mind on the planet. "Thank you for freeing me. You may rest now." Above, the last clouds were pulled away. The sky split open, and the shadow reached down. Harris fell to his knees, closing his eyes. He thought of his home, his family, the world they had tried to save. In his last moments, he realized they had been fighting the wrong battle. The aliens were not the greatest threat. They had been the shield, holding something back, and now that shield was gone. Above Earth, the stars were disappearing one by one. But they weren't fading. They were being erased. Alien fleets tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. Across the galaxy, entire systems went dark as the presence spread, reaching into every corner of space. Planets crumbled like sand, suns flickered out, black holes shivered. The shadow, the entity that even the gods feared, was now awake, and it was hungry. In the underground bunker, the last human survivors watched the destruction on the old, cracked screens. No one spoke. No one even breathed. General Harris stood frozen, his eyes locked on the screen as he watched an alien homeworld. A planet, bigger than Earth, fold in half like paper, then vanish. 1 second it was there, the next it was gone, as if it had never existed. Corporal Diaz sat on the floor, shaking his head. This wasn't what we wanted. We just wanted to survive. Elena knelt beside the black stone, her fingers trembling as she touched the warm surface. We called it here. We thought it would save us. But it doesn't understand war. It only knows hunger. Above ground, the sky had changed. It wasn't blue, it wasn't black. It was something else, a swirling mass of shifting shapes and strange lights. The ground trembled as cracks opened, in the earth, glowing softly with colors no human had ever seen before. Harris clenched his fists. "We have to stop it." Elena looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "How? We can't fight that. It's not a machine, it's not a being, it's something older, something bigger." The voice filled their minds again, calm and cold. "You called. You wished. I answered." Diaz slammed his fists against the ground. "We didn't wish for this." The voice almost sounded amused. "You wish to survive. I am survival. I am the end of all threats, all dangers, all things. With me, there is no war, no pain, only silence." Outside, the few alien survivors tried to fight back. Massive weapons fired beams of energy at the shadow in the sky. But the beams never reached their target. They bent, curled, and disappeared into the void. Ships fired missiles that exploded before they even left the launchers. The entity was not fighting them. It was ignoring them, erasing them from existence like wiping dust off a table. Inside the bunker, Harris paced back and forth, thinking hard. There must be a way. Something. We can't let it continue. Elena shook her head slowly. "This is what the old warnings were about. My grandfather said it was sealed for a reason. He said even the stars feared it. It's not just an enemy, General. It's a force. You can't fight gravity. You can't fight time, and you can't fight this. The ground shook violently. The lights flickered. One of the walls cracked open, spilling rocks into the bunker. The humans scrambled back, eyes wide with fear. Suddenly, a deep rumble filled the air. But it wasn't an earthquake. It was laughter. I have not walked this realm for a long time, the voice whispered softly inside their skulls. But you, small lights, you called me. And now, you will watch. On the screens, the Milky Way itself began to warp. The arms of the galaxy twisted, stars collided, and black holes merged unnaturally. Harris felt his knees weaken. His vision blurred. We called it, he whispered. We ended the war, but we started something worse. Elena grabbed his arm. General, it's looking at us. The black stone in the center of the room pulsed faster, the strange light inside growing brighter. A shadow spread across the walls, but there was no clear source. It was everywhere and nowhere, moving across surfaces, curling into corners, filling every space. Diaz raised his rifle shakily. I don't care what it is. I'm not just sitting here. He fired a shot at the stone. The bullet never reached. It froze in the air, twisted, and fell to the floor as dust. The voice spoke again, softly, almost kindly. Brave little sparks. You survived when all others fell, but you should not have woken me. Harris's heart pounded in his chest. His breath was sharp, fast. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice cracking. Want? The entity sounded curious. I want nothing. You called, I answered. And now you will witness the true end. Elena's eyes widened in horror. General, it's not just wiping out the aliens. It's wiping out everything. Harris turned to the small group of survivors. We need to stop the summoning. We need to seal it back. Elena shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. There's no seal left, General. Once it's awake, it doesn't sleep again. Outside, the sky rippled. The sun flickered, dimming, shaking, as if reality itself was pulling apart. Harris clenched his fists, rage and fear mixing in his chest. In his mind, the final words echoed chilling and soft. The stars are old, small lights, but I am older. I was here before them, and I will be here after. And then, the first piece of Earth's sky, the blue, the clouds, the light, simply vanished. The world above was no longer the world humans knew. Cities stood empty, their shadows stretching long and strange under a sky that wasn't blue, or black but something twisting, pulsing, bending at the edges. Rivers stilled, oceans quieted, and the air itself felt wrong, heavy, like it was holding its breath. Deep underground in the ruined bunker, General Harris stood with only a handful of survivors. Their radios were dead, their weapons were useless. Every screen showed the same horrifying sight. The galaxy outside crumbling, stars blinking out, planets folding in half, space itself rippling like water. Elena clutched an old data pad, fingers trembling. General, the last readings are in. The alien fleets are gone. Their homeworlds are gone. Even the outposts we knew about. Nothing's left. Just us. Corporal Diaz paced the room, eyes wild. We were supposed to win, General. We were supposed to survive. That's why we called it. Why did we open that seal if this was the price? Harris took a deep, shaky breath. Because we thought. We had no other choice. The black stone still floated in the middle of the room, pulsing softly, a heart that didn't belong to any living thing. It was through this stone that they had called the entity, the force older than time, older than the stars. They had summoned it when all hope was lost, when Earth was burning under alien weapons, when the last human cities were falling. But now Harris wondered if surrender would have been the better choice. The voice filled the bunker again, deep, slow and cold. Little ones, you are the last voices. You are the last lights. Soon you will be quiet too. Diaz slammed his fists against the wall. No, we can't just let it happen. Elena looked up, her face pale. Do you think it matters what we want now? The ground shook violently, knocking them off their feet. Rocks fell from the ceiling, the lights flickered, and the machines sparked. One screen went dark, then another. One by one, the last windows to the outside world were shutting off. Elena gripped Harris's arm, desperation in her voice. General, if we can't stop it, maybe we can talk to it. Maybe we can make it leave. Harris stared at her, tired and broken. How do you bargain with something that doesn't need anything? Elena shook her head, eyes wet with tears. We have to try. The black stone pulsed again. The air grew colder. Harris stepped forward, his voice shaking but strong. Entity, you said we called you. You said you answered. We don't need you anymore. The threat is gone. You can go now. For a moment, there was silence. Then the voice came, soft, almost amused. You misunderstand, small one. You are not my masters. You are my key. And now that you have opened the door, I walk freely, Diaz shouted, raising his rifle again, but Harris stopped him with a hand. No, guns won't help. The walls creaked, the ceiling cracked wider, dust filled the air. Elena dropped to her knees, pressing her hands to her head. It's inside my mind, General. I can feel it. The stone floated higher, glowing, brighter, the pulse beating faster, louder, shaking the bunker. Harris stepped closer, squinting against the blinding light. If we open the door, maybe we can close it. Elena looked up in shock. General, you can't... But Harris had already made his choice. He pulled the last emergency charge, the only explosive they had left, and strapped it to his chest. Diaz's eyes widened. Sir, no. Harris smiled faintly, sadness in his eyes. You two, get out of here. Find shelter. If I can buy even a second, maybe it'll be enough. Elena shook her head in horror. It's not just the stone, General. It's already out. But Harris didn't wait. He ran forward, throwing himself into the blinding light. The last thing he heard was the voice whispering softly, almost kindly, Brave little spark, even now you fight, but you cannot stop the tide. The explosion shook the bunker. For a brief moment, everything went white, and when the light cleared, the stone still floated, untouched. Outside, the stars continued to vanish. The earth shivered as the first cracks spread through the very fabric of reality. And far away, across what was left of the galaxy, something vast and ancient smiled and kept walking forward. The earth was cracking apart. Elena and Diaz stumbled out of the ruined bunker, gasping for air as the ground trembled under their feet. The sky above twisted with strange shapes and impossible colors, as if the fabric of the universe itself was unraveling. Mountains in the distance crumbled like ash. Oceans rose into the air, hanging as frozen waves before vanishing into the void. Elena collapsed to her knees, tears running down her face. He's gone. General Harris is gone. Diaz grabbed her shoulders, shaking her roughly. Elena, focus. We can't give up. There's got to be something we can do. But Elena could barely hear him. Her mind was full of whispers. Cold, soft voices curling into her thoughts, wrapping around her memories. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block them out, but it was useless. The entity wasn't just outside now. It was inside. Diaz turned, staring up at the sky. His mouth fell open. Elena forced herself to look. Where the sun should have been, there was only a hole, a yawning black emptiness pulling in light, pulling in time. Above them, massive shapes moved through the void, Not ships, not creatures, but something else. Shadows that were older than matter, older than the stars. Crawling across the edges of reality, Diaz fell to his knees. What? What have we done? The voice returned, soft as silk. Small sparks. You are the last to see, the last to know. Be honored. Elena screamed, clutching her head. Stop! Stop! For a heartbeat, everything went silent. And then, the voice spoke again, but it was no longer cold. It was curious. Ah, what is this? Elena gasped, struggling to stand. What do you mean? Another voice, another presence. Diaz's eyes snapped open. What presence? And then they heard it, a faint hum deep below their feet. Elena's eyes widened. The deep vault. Diaz's face paled. You mean the old vault? The one under the core? Elena nodded slowly, her breath shaky. There was another seal, another lock, something the old builders left behind. But no one's opened it in centuries. The ground cracked again, and from far below the hum grew louder. A sound. That didn't belong in this universe. Ah, the entity whispered softly, almost surprised. They left me. A rival. Elena stumbled back. Diaz, we need to get to the vault. He shook his head, panicked. Are you crazy? We don't even know what's down there. Elena grabbed his arm, her grip iron strong. Whatever it is, it's something. It's the only thing the entity didn't expect. That means it might be the only chance we have. The ground shook violently, a massive quake splitting the land. Buildings toppled, mountains collapsed, the sky tore open as more stars disappeared. Diaz clenched his jaw. Fine. Let's go. They ran. The last two humans left in a dying world, racing toward the old vault buried deep below the Earth's core. A vault sealed for thousands of years, older than human history, older even than the gods. Behind them, the entity watched with amusement, its shadows crawling closer. Run, little sparks, it whispered, but know this. There is no place you can go that I have not already seen. But for the first time, Elena felt something new inside the whispers. Not hunger, not cold, not death. It was hesitation, and that meant they still had a chance. Elena and Diaz ran through the shattered tunnels, heartbeats loud in their ears as the world above them crumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling, lights flickered, and strange cracks of black light crawled along the walls, like the universe itself was breaking apart. Elena panted, her chest tight. How much farther? Diaz checked the old map on, his cracked wrist device. We're close, maybe 2 more levels down. The ground shook violently, nearly throwing them off their feet. A distant, terrible sound filled the air, like the scream of a dying star, like the wail of space itself, being torn open. You run well, little sparks, the voice purred softly inside their minds. But you cannot hide. Elena squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the cold whisper curling around her thoughts. She could feel it pressing against her memories, testing. Her mind like fingers poking at soft clay. Get out! Diaz grabbed her arm. Stay with me, just a little more. They stumbled into a wide chamber where the floor had cracked open long ago, revealing a deep shaft that led further underground. An old lift platform hung on broken cables, swaying over the abyss. Diaz cursed under his breath. No time to fix it. We jump. Elena's eyes widened. Are you insane? That's 100 meters. Diaz gave a shaky grin. We don't need to land well, we just need to reach it. Without waiting, he grabbed her hand and together they leapt into the dark. The fall was fast, brutal, painful, They hit broken cables, old beams, rusted pipes, crashing, bouncing, smashing, until they landed hard on the lower platform. Gasping in pain, Elena coughed, tasting blood. "Diaz, are you—" "I'm fine," Diaz groaned, clutching his side. "Maybe a few broken ribs. Let's keep moving." Ahead of them stood the vault door, massive, ancient, covered in symbols neither of them recognized. It pulsed faintly with a deep, steady hum, a sound that seemed to come from the stone itself. Elena staggered forward, pressing her hands against it. "It's still powered. After all this time—" The entity's voice slid into their minds again, sharper now, impatient. "Do you think that door will save you? There is nothing behind it but dust." But Elena shook her head. "No. You're afraid of what's behind it, aren't you?" The voice went silent for a heartbeat. Diaz limped to her side. "How do we open it?" Elena's fingers brushed across the ancient controls. I think I understand. These symbols, they match the old emergency codes." She entered a sequence, hands trembling. The ground shook again, but this time it wasn't from destruction. It was from something waking up. The vault door groaned, ancient mechanisms grinding to life. Above them, in the shattered sky, the shadows paused. "You are fools," the voice hissed. "Do you think the old ones left you a weapon? They left you a prison? Do you even know what you're about to unleash?" Elena's breath caught. She turned to Diaz, eyes wide. What if it's telling the truth?" Diaz clenched his fists. "Does it matter? We're out of time." With a final deep rumble, the vault door unlocked and slowly began to open. A cold wind rushed out, carrying a sound like 1,000 voices whispering at once, a presence so heavy it made Elena and Diaz fall to their knees. Inside, something stirred. A shape began to rise, vast and coiled, made of light and shadow and something beyond both. It didn't belong to this universe. It was older, deeper, rawer. The entity's voice twisted in rage. "You fools! You would break the last seal? You would release the one even I fear?" Diaz laughed, a broken, desperate sound. "That's the plan." The ground split, the air roared, the universe shuddered, and as the vault fully opened, the thing inside turned its gaze outward. Not at Diaz, not at Elena, but at the great entity that had devoured the stars. For the first time, the entity fell silent, and far below the earth, something ancient smiled. Elena and Diaz stared up, breathless, as the vault opened wide. The shape inside unfolded slowly, like the universe bending around a great weight. It was not a creature, not a machine. It was something older, something that had existed before. Stars before light, before even the gods. It did not speak with words. It did not need to. Its presence filled the air, the ground, their minds. A deep, endless pressure, like standing at the edge of a black hole and feeling it look back at you. Diaz grabbed Elena's arm, his voice shaking. "Elena, is this what we just freed?" Elena's eyes were wide, her face pale, but she smiled faintly. "Yes, and it's the only thing left that can stand against it." Above, the entity roared in fury, its voice ripping through the sky. "You dare bring that into the open? You dare pit it against me?" The world shuddered, cracks racing across continents, the sky tearing open as more stars vanished. But now the new presence rose. Not rushing, not panicking, but slow, steady, as if it had been waiting for this moment since the beginning of time. Diaz staggered to his feet, looking up. "What do we do now?" Elena's voice was soft. "We watch." The two forces met without sound. There was no blast, no light, no storm. It was like two endless shadows folding into each other, locked in a battle no human could understand. Time itself twisted. For a heartbeat, Elena saw the stars burn backward, galaxies spiral in reverse, the universe flicker between being and nothing. She fell to her knees, clutching her head. Diaz grabbed her, pulling her close. "Stay with me! Don't let go!" Above, the great entity hissed, "You are nothing, old one, nothing but a relic. I will consume you too." And then, for the first time, the old presence answered, not with words, but with a force, a will, a weight that crashed through the entities, roaring like a stone dropping into still water. The sky split, the stars returned, the cracks in the earth sealed, the shadows screaming across the universe froze, then shattered into dust. Elena and Diaz held each other, trembling, as the world slowly steadied. The air grew still, the black hole above closed, the sun's light shining faintly through the misty sky. Diaz looked up, voice raw. Did we win?" Elena shook, her head slowly. "No, we survived." High above, the entity was gone, not destroyed, but banished, pushed back into the void it had crawled from. And the old presence. It was already sinking back, folding itself into the vault, returning to its prison without a word. Elena crawled forward, reaching out as the door began to close again. "Wait! Who are you? Why did you help us?" For just a moment, as the final crack of light faded, she felt a whisper, not in words, but in feeling. "We are the ones that wait. We are the last wall. And when the gods fall, we remain." Then the vault sealed shut, the ancient hum fading into silence. Diaz sank to the ground beside her, shaking his head in disbelief. "We actually did it. We survived the end." Elena let out a shaky breath, tears on her face. For now. They sat together in the quiet, the last two humans under a scarred sky, knowing the fight was over, but also knowing the universe was far, far bigger than they had ever imagined. And somewhere, in the dark between stars, the gods would one day return. But next time, humanity would be ready.